be unveiling very soon, not in one county, but in 14 different counties. And I think that requires applause. Thank you very much. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a great pleasure for me to be here this morning. It's a bit of a crazy day. I'm flying out. In fact, I had to change my flight because I said there's no way I'm going to miss this meeting for two reasons. One, the tax are an important partner because the stuff that we're trying to do, you have already done it. And that, to us, is very important. And the fact that you have engaged with our plans and this agenda, and you have said that you're going to invest and you're going to come behind this affordable housing agenda is a validation that the plans that we're putting together are actually bankable. So that, to me, is very, very important. Number two is that I've been invited several times to come to Turkey, and for some strange reasons, something happens and I have missed coming to Turkey. So if I was going to miss this meeting, I'm sure there will have been a perception that I don't like Turkey, which is not true. You might also be aware that I'm not only holding the docket of housing, but also the docket of urban development. And we don't talk much about urban planning and urban development. So for the investors that are here, we would like you to also engage us on the issues of urban development. We're talking about how are we going to grow our secondary cities. We don't want them to grow the same way we've done here, where we do the development and then we plan later. So we do have an opportunity of engaging with yourselves in terms of assisting us, with some of the models that you have had. So we need urban resilient infrastructure. I'm also in charge of public transport in the Nairobi metropolitan area, and I have had a chance also of interacting with the Turkish group that wants to do high-speed commuter rail. In this day and age, and you're seeing a lot of the locals, you've been seeing a lot of discourse on our media about issues like BRT and all those things, and some people are saying we postpone it for 10 years. It is really a tragedy that a city like Nairobi is dysfunctional because of all this congestion, and it affects our productivity. It also affects our economy. So we have got to undo many years of not doing things the right way, and obviously we need good partners for us to do this light rail and to do bus rapid transit. So you're welcome to engage with us on a number of issues. But today I want to talk to you about affordable housing agenda. Fantastic. Is this the one? Use this one? Okay. Am I supposed to point somewhere? Maybe I can just enter here. Right. So very briefly, the affordable housing agenda is part of our Big Four agenda, which is our medium-term planning, which talks to the bigger Vision 2030, which is our national long-term strategy. And most of you, I'm sure you're familiar with this, so I'm not going to take a lot of time. But at the heart of the Big Four agenda is addressing the pain that is being felt at a household level. Today, households are suffering because of issues to do with jobs. The young ones are going to universities and colleges, and they cannot be able to get employment. And that is why we are doubling down on our manufacturing, because manufacturings are going to create jobs. And I am one of the drivers of the manufacturing because we want to use technology to drive affordable housing. And once we start using these industrial building techniques, our economic model shows that for every one house we're going to create 3 to 5 new jobs. So manufacturing is going to help us to create good permanent jobs for our people. The other one, obviously, is the issue of food security. A lot of households are crying that mothers are having to make a decision as to whether to buy bread or to walk to work for the kids to go to school. Food security has been a big issue, partly because we've relied on a rain-fed agriculture. We need to look at different ways of how we can increase our food production, and also we are looking towards friends like Turkey. You can come and show us how can we be able to do this mass production of food. And of course, the issue of healthcare, and medical issues has bankrupted families. One, many, two times you've been invited to go for fundraisings so that you can contribute towards people to go overseas. Now, we don't need to go overseas to treat some of these diseases. We want to make sure that we treat them here, and we want to make sure that health is affordable but also universal. Nobody should be left behind. And of course, lastly, is the issue of decent housing. Article 43, subsection 1 of our Constitution actually confers you as a Kenyan a right. It is a right to a decent and adequate housing. And we've been having this debate and saying, but Kenyans are not sleeping in the open air. They have houses. So why are you talking about affordable housing? But you just need to drive just a few kilometers to Kibera and just look at how our people live. It is not decent, and certainly there's no adequacy of services. You have flying toilets, you have got many people living in a very small space. That is not decent. And so at the heart of affordable housing is decency and adequate. And of course, we know that food, housing ranks higher after food as a fundamental human need. And all of us, in terms of this Maslow hierarchy of needs, ultimately, you want to retire in dignity and have a place you can call home. But what we don't want to do is for you to work all your life to get a house at the twilight, of your years. That doesn't make sense. So we want to make sure that through this particular program, that you have a chance to get a house that you can pay for over a period of time, and as a result of that, even when you retire, you have something better than a pension, which is a house. And by the way, housing also is not just, again, 4 walls and a roof. We are also talking about an asset that you can use to get as a collateral to get some financing to enhance your business. Majority of Kenyans are traders. Okay, so housing is not just a 4 wall and a roof, but also it is a path out of poverty. Now, on the affordable housing and economic development, we estimate in terms of, as I said, that housing is going to increase our GDP because of the mass production of housing. That countries like China, and we keep on going to all these places to benchmark, but some of these things are pretty common sense. China has grown because they have doubled down on their construction, right? And when you look at construction of housing, it is labor intensive as opposed to roads, which is capital intensive. So we need to make sure this program succeeds. For every $1 that is going to be invested in this economy, it's going to create $1 to $3 new. So that means it is going to stimulate the economy. At the moment, we know the economy is a bit sluggish, so we are encouraging this investment to come in because it is going to stimulate the economy. I've spoken about housing being labor intensive, but most importantly, is because of the way we have created this particular program, we have standardized the units, we have standardized doors, we have standardized windows. And what does that mean? That means that if you're a Jua Kali person, today you make windows and you make doors, but because there's no standard, you only produce 1 door a day. But by adopting some of this industrial technique, like standardization, we are able now to give you to ring fence and say that you will produce all the doors. Let me give you an example of what exactly that means. We are about to break ground in Park Road. We were supposed to break ground in December. Park Road is 1,400 units. We need 7,000 doors, and we need a whole lot more windows. As a ministry, we sat down and we carved out things that we believe must be produced here. It might be cheaper to bring them from outside. But we want to make sure they are produced here, and then I'm sure over 5 years' time, we will be able to bring down the cost, but we've got to start somewhere. Now, that bold act, and this is contractual, so it's no longer PowerPoint presentation, meant that we have ring-fenced 300 million shillings for 3 sets of circles of, informal traders. Now, we cannot have a program like this one, in 5 years we're still talking about informal. Because one way of mainstreaming these informal traders is by making sure that you shore up their businesses. So some of these things are pretty common sense, but this is the practical way we are doing it. We are targeting all these informal settlements across the country. So not only are we going to build these houses, we are going to shore up our informal traders who also make a huge constituency of this Chamber of Commerce. Now, quickly, where are we in terms of affordable, unaffordable and unavailability? Because that is the situation in Kenya today. If you look at Vision 2030, Vision 2030 shows that for us to attain a mid-economy status by year 2030, we need to be producing 250,000 houses a year. Now, this graph here shows you how the 250 is divided. The 250 is divided between 80,000 for the high end and 170,000 for the rest of the market. Now, in terms of the actual production, we are producing 49,000 out of the 80,000. And that is a pass. It's not A, but it is a pass. But for affordable housing, we are doing only 1,000 out of 170,000. 1,000 out of 170,000, not 100,000, 1,000. And that is where the challenge lies. It's because we are not producing enough housing for the majority of our people. The high end only make 3%. 3% of our working people. That means 97% of Kenyans have no hope of ever owning a house. And that means this picture here shows that there is a systemic problem, and you do not massage your way out of a systemic problem. You have got to come with a disruptive agenda, and that is exactly what we are going to do. So allow me then to share with you what is this strategy. We have looked at 3 areas. One is the supply side of the housing, the demand side of the housing, and what are the things that are going to enable us address the issues of supply and demand. So on the supply side, our plan is based on what is called proven demand master plan and mega city approach. What does that mean? We hired KPMG to go around the country and do a demand analysis. And the report will be released soon, and you'll be amazed that Kenyans in counties, in rural areas are crying for houses. So forget about the noise from the few people who tweet and are on talk shows here. Majority of Kenyans want houses. There is a report that shows that. Now, how are we going to address this issue? We can build 10 houses and 10 houses there, but that is not going to fix our issues. What we have done is that last year, in an unprecedented move, on the 20th of December, we transferred 111 billion shillings to counties, 45 counties and 14 towns. See, like a county like Kiambu has the Thika, has Ruiru, has Kikuyu, which have got more than 70,000 people. What is that money for? We want counties to do a couple of things. One, we want them to plan their cities. We are giving them money to do spatial plannings and also to do their county development plans. Two, we want them to set up urban boards. Why do we want them to set up urban boards? It is because once they set up urban boards, we can start talking about resilient urban infrastructure. Our cities, our towns are a pile of rubbish and garbage, because we do not have proper solid waste management plans that are in place. So this money is going to address some of those issues. We don't have liquid waste management. Our towns, when it rains, there is flooding because we don't have proper stormwater drainage. And of course, where we have a lot of land, they don't have link roads. So we have all these missing links. So you have land that is cheap, but it's not of any development value because you have not opened it up. And of course, we want to put the other trunk infrastructure. So every year, I'm going to give counties these 11 billion shillings every year for them to plan to put up this particular urban infrastructure. And we know, in private sector, this is private sector we're talking to. Once government invests in the core infrastructure, then the rest you do what you do best. You develop, right? But we as government have got to enable it. And the challenge at the moment has been that we develop and then we come back with the infrastructure. And it's crazy. Because or we put up the infrastructure and then develop later, and that's a problem. Now, look at Thika Road as an example, if I digress a little bit. Thika Road, we got a 40-year loan from Africa Development Bank to put up that infrastructure. But because we did not have proper spatial planning around that corridor, what happened? The value of land along Thika Road shot up by over 200 times, not 200%, 200 times. And now here is the irony. Everybody else made money, but government didn't make money. Why? Because we had no way of capturing that value increase. Now today, if I want to take, and I can tell you a practical example, I am trying to put a sewer line in Juja today. To go acquire land is costing me 1 billion shillings just to acquire land to put a sewer line. You see, that is what we want counties to start addressing. Don't put the cart before the horse. Because if you do that, then there's going to be challenges. What we want counties to say is that this land here is designated for industrial parks. This is where we want to do agro-processing, and then put the infrastructure, and then private sector is going to do what they do best. Of course, we are adopting something which is called mixed-use development, mixed-use and mixed-income development. Because what we're not doing with this housing is to create ghettos. We don't want to create ghettos or affordable housing ghettos. And of course, on the supply side, we are enabling affordable developer financing. There's a lot of capital that is coming in. I'm going to share with you shortly what it means today in terms of all the expressions of interest that we have received since we came up with this plan. On the demand side, Kenya has some very unique statistics. A country of 45, 46 million people, we have about 25,000 mortgages. Not 25 million, 25,000 mortgages. Now, that is a problem. And it shows that there is something that is wrong. The other thing that is another statistic that is shocking is that the ratio of rent to mortgage is 1:6. So in other words, mortgage costs you 6 times what you're getting for rental. And that means that it is almost impossible for you to walk into a bank today for an investment property. Forget about property that you're going to live in. Get a mortgage, get a tenant, because the rent that you're going to collect from the tenant is not going to be sufficient to cover the mortgage. Now, I spent 19 years in South Africa. The ratio of rent to mortgage in South Africa is 1:1. And that is why a normal working person has got several investment properties. But here, we cannot do that because of this particular issue. So we need to sort out the issues on the demand side. And so we have established 2 institutions to deal with that issue. One is called Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company, because we want to introduce secondary liquidity into our markets. And the second one is a housing fund, which is a national contribution, which is a mandatory contribution. And this contribution is going to help majority of Kenyans who cannot even qualify for a mortgage. Remember, for you to get a mortgage, you need to go to a financial institution, and there's an eligibility criteria. But if you're Mama Mboga and your cash flows are lumpy, or if you're a Juakali person where from November people don't buy until maybe March, you're not bankable. So the housing fund is going to address those people. And then of course, we have put together a portal. Now, on the enabling side, we have come up with the policy where as government we're doing what is called land banking. Because as I've said right now, we want to make sure that where we put all this master plan, we go and get land. We hold a lot of land as government, but you know the issues that we have with our land. There's encroachment, there's people with 19 different titles, and all those things. So what we have done, which is different from the last time I addressed the chamber, is that we have actually sat back and said, the best land for development actually lies with the private sector. You are the one who are holding the land that is serviced in all these areas. So while we are sorting out our land bank, which is going to take a little bit of time, for us to get this program going, on the 14th of January, we published what is called a call for application to join the affordable housing. And I think this is something that is very important, and a big takeaway from here is that we are onboarding what we are calling strategic partners. And who are strategic partners? There are 4 of them. One is somebody with a balance sheet, someone who can write a nice check. If you're a financial investor, and most of you are our friends from Turkey, we are inviting you to come and make the financial investment here. The second strategic partner that we are onboarding is someone with technology. Every day I'm receiving people are writing to me and telling me, last week I received something very interesting, and it's 3D printing, and they're saying, listen, I know you've seen other 3D printers for housing, but now ours, you can do a house in 2.5 hours. And now I'm like, okay, this is too much talk, come and do it here. And all they're saying is, how can we enable them to set up some of these factories? Okay? The other one is people that have got execution capabilities. Because as a country, if we are only doing 1,000, we're doing 50,000 houses in total in a year, based on these statistics. How are we going to do 10,000 a month? We need people that have got the execution capabilities, but we also want them to partner with our local developers. Now, I've talked about the infrastructure funding under Kenya Urban Support Program. We have put a lot of tax incentives, and we are waiting. We are ready to listen to you, because if you don't talk to us, the chamber needs to talk to us and tell us, listen, Bonapiers, it doesn't make sense for you to ban logging local here, and then you increase duty on imported timber. We're scoring on goals. Okay, it probably was a nice idea when you look at it in a silo, but when you look at it holistically, it does not make sense. But you are the people who are affected most, because if you can't get timber here, and to bring it from outside the country, we are adding more duty, and we are telling you to build affordable housing, hello, doesn't make sense. So what we're encouraging the business community, because this program, and I want to repeat myself, and if you don't get anything, please get this right. Government is not in the business of building houses. We are not going to build any houses. What we are doing is to create an enabling environment for you as private sector to do what you do best. But can we make sure then that we are not having conflicting strategies and conflicting goals and taxation that is not aligned to this medium-term planning? So for us walking this journey, what we don't want to do is to create a program in Arthi House and then come and give it to you as developers and investors. So I want to just go quickly and show you that this is our project pipeline. We've got lot 1A. Today we have an idea of where 177,640 units are going to be. So if you are investors, we have got projects. So we are welcoming you, and we have given you a better breakdown of where those projects are going to be, but we are enriching. By the time window 1 closes, which is 14th of February, and if you forget, that is Valentine's Day. On Valentine's Day, make sure that you have put in your application to become a strategic partner in this affordable housing agenda. Now, just very briefly, these are some of our key design principles, because we also don't want to create concrete jungles. We want to make sure that there's enough open spaces so that our kids can have places to play. We want to make sure that there's proper access and movement. If you look at how we build our housing and street, we don't have enough space for non-motorized transport like cycling and walking. All right? So we want to make sure that you adhere to all these guidelines. We are talking about fourth industrial revolution. That is what everybody else is talking about there. We must make sure that we future-proof these houses by ensuring that we have got smart cities and we have smart technologies. And that is a language that I'm sure you in Turkey, you're very familiar with. You have got issues of safety and security. We want to make sure that in these households and these communities and the gated communities, people feel safe. And we want to make sure that we create communities. And that's why I said we're not going to balkanize people who are in the low income and build houses for them in one corner, because then we are going to create ghettos. We want to make sure we create communities. And that is why, as a matter of fact, the president the other day said that we're not going to build police housing here, and then we build houses for everybody else there. Police are part of the community. Let them live with the people. And that is why some of those policies are being abolished. And of course, the building technology is something that we want to engage. So what does that mean? That initially we're looking at 50% of the land to go into residential. We have about 10% for community facilities with retail. We have about 15% open spaces, and we have got utilities and road taking about 25%. Now, I just want to end with this slide because, I've got a lot more slides, but I think I'm going to end with this slide because I want to talk to the money people now. Now, what is the opportunity for you as an investor? Now, I've done a lot of roadshows, and I've gone to all different places, but also my background myself as an investment banker, and did a lot of work on what is called off-balance sheet funding, because you all know that as a country, we have got to do what is called fiscal consolidation, and that means lowering our debt. This program is going to cost 2.6 trillion shillings to do 1 million houses. I know we say 500,000, but as you saw in the demand-supply analysis, if I only